Well, I finally did it. Welcome to the first episode of the Black Revolutionary Collective podcast.
Come on, give the power to the people. Give the power to the people. Yeah, yeah. Give the power to the people. Give the power to the people. Yeah, yeah.
By any means necessary.
Now, before we get into the topic of discussion today, I just want to, let's just make sure that you're in the right place. This podcast is about one thing and one thing only. It is about Black liberation for all Black people of African descent. So if this ain't what you thought it was, you can leave right now. I'll wait. Okay, now, good luck. Now, today we're going to answer the question, if it's Black power versus Black fear, what wins? In order to answer this question, we have to revisit the past, of course, so we can learn from it and build a strategy for success today. Now, today we're diving in deep into a pivotal moment in our history, a moment that shifted the very landscape of the civil rights movement and birthed a new powerful ideology, Black power. But before I tell you this story, I have to take a moment to mention the man that influenced what would eventually become the Black Power movement. And do you know who that man is? I know you know who that man is. Malcolm X. His insistence on Black pride, Black self-reliance, and Black unity became central tenets of what would emerge as the Black Power movement. Groups like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, aka SNCC, and then later the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, took up Malcolm's call. They embraced his rejection of passive resistance and adopted his vision of what? Global Black solidarity. So now let me tell you about the night in Mississippi where the Black Power movement was born. Our story begins in June of 1966 with a man named James Meredith. Many of you may not recognize this name, but he was the first Black student to integrate into the University of Mississippi back in 1962, an achievement that required federal intervention and faced intense, violent opposition from white society. 4 years later, Meredith, ever the trailblazer, embarked on a solo journey, a protest, if you will, a 220-mile march against fear from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi. His goal was simple yet profound, to encourage Black Mississippians to register to vote and to defy the pervasive fear that kept them from exercising their rights. He wanted to demonstrate that a Black man could walk freely and safely through the heart of Mississippi. But on the second day, just the second day of his walk, near Hernando, Mississippi, the racial violence came as it always did. A white man, a coward, standing by the side of the road, ambushed Meredith. 3 shots rang out, fired from this man's shotgun. James Meredith fell, wounded, hit in the head and the back. The dream of a peaceful, fearless walk was shattered, replaced by the grim reality of white hatred. By some miracle, James Meredith survived this attack, but his march was abruptly halted. The news of his shooting sent shock waves across the nation, and particularly through the Black community. It was a stark reminder of the ever-present danger, the deeply entrenched hatred that still plagues America to this day. But this act of violence, rather than extinguishing the flame of resistance, ignited a new fire in Black folks. Civil rights leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Floyd McKissick of the Congress of Radical Equality, aka CORE, and a young, dynamic, and increasingly radical leader from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, aka SNCC, and his name was Stokely Carmichael. They all rushed to Mississippi. They vowed to continue Meredith's march, to pick up the banner of fearlessness and carry it all the way to Jackson, Mississippi. As the march progressed, harassment continued and resistance and tensions simmered. The old guard, represented by Dr. King, still held firm to the principles of nonviolence and integration. But a younger generation, represented by Stokely Carmichael, was growing impatient. Yeah. You see, they were disillusioned with the slow pace of change and the constant brutality they faced. They questioned the efficacy of appealing to the moral conscience of a nation that seemed to lack one. Then, on June 16, 1966, in Greenwood, Mississippi, at a rally during the march, Stokely Carmichael stepped to the podium, the makeshift stage, if you will. The air was thick with emotion, anger, and frustration, defiance, and desperate yearning for something more. And then he spoke, his voice clear and resonant. Stokely said, "We've been saying freedom for 6 years, and we ain't got nothing. What we're going to start saying now is Black Power." The phrase hit like a thunderbolt. Black Power. It was a radical departure, a direct challenge to the prevailing narrative of the civil rights movement. For years, the movement had largely focused on integration, to our own demise, on achieving equal rights within existing American framework, often relying on the white folks' morality and the appeal to universal brotherhood. The emphasis was on proving Black people's humanity and worthiness to be included. But Stokely Carmichael's cry for Black Power was different. It wasn't an appeal. It was a declaration. It wasn't about integrating into a system that had historically oppressed Black people. It was about building a new power base for Black people. It signaled a shift from seeking acceptance to demanding self-determination. It embraced Black identity, Black pride, and Black self-reliance. It was a rejection of the passive mindset that had often characterized the movement. A call to action that resonated deeply with those who felt that nonviolence alone was insufficient. In order to dismantle systemic racism, this speech he delivered with flawless conviction was the undeniable beginning of the Black Power movement. It was clear, unambiguous step away from the normal passive mindset of the civil rights movement at the time. It didn't advocate for violence, like some would say, but it did advocate for self-defense and for Black communities to organize and control their own destinies, politically, economically, and socially. And what's wrong with that? Now, as the march continued, Stokely and others faced arrest. But this only fueled his resolve. Each arrest became a platform, another opportunity to speak about Black Power, to articulate this philosophy that was capturing the imaginations of a frustrated generation. He would not be silenced. His arrest only reinforced the idea that this existing system was inherently unjust to Black people, and that a different approach was needed. After the march, Stokely Carmichael continued his work with SNCC, pushing the organization further and further towards what? The Black Power ideology. He, along with Rap H. Brown, would later become prominent figures in the Black Panther Party, working alongside Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, further solidifying the Black Power movement's presence and influence. The Black Panther Party, with its emphasis on self-defense, community programs, and revolutionary ideals, became a powerful embodiment of the Black Power ethos. So what can we learn from the Black Power movement? And why ultimately did it face such significant challenges and in many ways fail to achieve its revolutionary goals? The Black Power movement offered invaluable lessons. It fostered an unprecedented sense of Black pride and identity, inspiring cultural movements in art, literature, and music. It pushed for Black self-determination and the development of Black institutions, including schools, businesses, and political organizations. It forced a more honest reckoning with the systemic nature of racism, moving beyond individual acts of prejudice to address the deep-seated power imbalances in American society. It challenged the prevailing narrative of American exceptionalism and exposed the hypocrisy of a nation that said liberty and justice for all while oppressing all Black citizens. However, the movement also faced immense obstacles, ultimately contributing to its decline. This is what we must learn from. External forces played a huge role. The FBI under J. Edgar Hoover, for example, launched COINTELPRO, a covert and illegal program designed to disrupt, discredit, and destroy Black nationalist groups. Leaders were assassinated, imprisoned, or driven to exile. Internal divisions also plagued the movement. COINTELPRO placed informants and undercover agents inside Black Power organizations like the Black Panther Party, SNCC, and the Nation of Islam. And even individuals like Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they sent spies to report on them and their activities, recorded meetings, and tried to influence internal decisions, often intentionally sowing division. The FBI used forged letters, phone calls, and media manipulation to create paranoia, distrust, and infighting. Tactics included sending fake letters between activists accusing one another of being FBI informants, spreading rumors of affairs or betrayals to break up marriages and friendships, feeding false information to the press to tarnish reputations. This psychological warfare caused many movements to fracture from the inside out. Man, I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down. COINTELPRO targeted leaders with false arrests, constant surveillance, IRS audits, and bogus criminal charges. For example, dozens of Panthers, including Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, were arrested on questionable charges and held in pretrial detention for months or even years, draining the movement of its energy and financial resources. The FBI worked with mainstream media to frame Black power groups as violent and criminal, labeling them as threats to national security. They framed the Black Panther Party, which ran free breakfast programs for children, free community clinics. They framed them as militant terrorists. They framed them as a militant terrorist organization. This turned public opinion Even among some so-called moderate Black Americans, Hoover gave their strategy away with this statement, and I quote, "The greatest threat to the internal security of the country is the emergence of a Black Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement." You see, by targeting leaders, families, spreading lies, and creating a constant atmosphere of fear, COINTELPRO caused burnout, breakdowns, and paranoia within the movement. By the early 1970s, SNCC had crumbled. The Panthers were internally fractured, heavily incarcerated, or dead. Many activists fled the country rather than be assassinated. COINTELPRO did not destroy ideas of Black power, but it crippled the organizations trying to bring those ideas to life and put the fear of God into anyone who dared revitalize the Black power movement. I guess I didn't get the memo. Anyway, this brings us to a crucial point: the split in the Black community, both then and now, is rooted in the tension between Black fear and Black power. In the 1960s, Black fear represented the reality of living under Jim Crow, where violence, intimidation, and economic subjugation were daily threats. For many, the priority was survival, and the strategy was often one of cautious accommodation, seeking incremental gains within the existing system, even if it meant enduring indignity. The Black power response, on the other hand, was a rejection of all that fear, a defiant assertion of agency, and a demand for fundamental change, even at the risk of greater confrontation. This created a profound ideological divide within the Black community. Today, while the overt forms of Jim Crow may be gone, the legacy of Black fear persists in different ways. It manifests as fear of police brutality, systemic injustice, economic marginalization, and the ongoing threat to Black lives and livelihoods. This fear can lead to a similar dynamic of seeking incremental reform, of focusing on individual achievement within existing structures, and sometimes a reluctancy to fully embrace radical change for fear of further backlash. Conversely, the spirit of Black power continues to exist as a desire for true liberation, for systemic dismantling of oppressive structures, and for Black communities to wield genuine power and control over their own destinies. This tension between a cautious approach driven by fear and a more radical approach driven by the desire for self-determination continues to play out in contemporary Black activism and political discourse. Now, we ain't got no shortage of Black faces in high places these days, but what we do have is an overflow of complicity. A simulation is now sold as liberation, when really it's just another leash, shinier maybe, but still a leash. Let me let you in on something. Oprah has no power. Black people can't get power individually. I don't care how much money you have. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Your so-called success requires you to stay busy chasing proximity to whiteness instead of building institutions owned and run by your people, separate from the systemically racist institutions that we're currently trapped in. If you are not allowed to do that and be successful, then you individually have no power, even if you are Oprah. I'm going to say something else. Having a bunch of money doesn't matter if you give it all back to your oppressor. Huh? Because you value their brands, their schools, their corporations over your own. You know what that gets you? No power. We got more black millionaires than ever before. We got influencers with followings that rival TV networks. We got black folks on corporate boards, in Congress, in Hollywood, and even in the White House. And yet, the hood still looks the same. Mass incarceration still thriving due to over-policing and higher sentences for black defendants. Police still murdering us at will on these streets. And for every George Floyd type justice, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of names that don't go viral, that get no justice. And those criminal police officers are still on the job. Like Breonna Taylor's murderers. Not to mention, our schools are still underfunded. Health is still declining, and access to health care is difficult and getting more difficult as the days go by for our people. Our black unity is still fractured due to the continuous division strategy of the white majority. Divide and conquer. Why? Because somewhere along the way, fear masked as survival took over our community. Internally, we started saying things like, oh, I can't say that. I could lose my job. Or I can't do that. I can't do that for my people because white people might find out and not vote for me. Oh no, I can't sing or rap or write about something like that because I could lose my sponsors or my crossover appeal. And it just keeps going and going until you get to the right now. The BRC has chapters meeting all over the U.S. and abroad. And I got black folks scared to meet in person because, what if white folks find out where we are and what we're doing? So it's going to be trouble. That's what we're dealing with right now in 2025. So don't tell me we ain't got black fear. It's crazy, but it's a different kind of fear now. Not fear of bullets or batons. It's the fear of losing access, of losing brand deals, of losing white friends to network with, of saying something too radical, of losing privilege we've been allowed to taste, but never truly own. We've traded in our revolution for representation. And y'all, that ain't liberation. True black liberation is the ongoing struggle for the full freedom, dignity, and self-determination of black people, all black people, particularly in societies shaped by white supremacy, colonialism, and anti-black racism. The kind you find in the U.S. and abroad. Black liberation aims to build systems rooted in justice, equity, and collective power. But society would tell you that black liberation or black power is some hateful call for violence. When Malcolm X said, by any means necessary, did it scare white folks? Yes. However, he wasn't talking about unprovoked violence. He was talking about self-defense from the immoral violence that they continued to attack black people with. The truth remains that we as black people have the right to defend ourselves under the law. Malcolm X, Huey Newton, Stokely Carmichael, Bobby Seale, Angela Davis, Fred Hampton, Assata Shakur, Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso, Elaine Brown, and Toussaint Louverture of the Haiti's Revolution. All of them knew that. You see, too many of us are just reacting to headlines, to hashtags, to trauma porn. We're mourning, resharing, repeating, but we're not organizing. We're not strategizing. We're not putting our petty differences aside like Malcolm X said we needed to do in 64. True revolution takes uncompromised love for all Black people. We need to move from individual success stories to collective elevation. So how can we revitalize the Black Power movement in 2025? By addressing the lessons learned and bridging the historical divides. I believe a revitalized Black Power movement must be multifaceted and adaptable. So we must reclaim and redefine power in a contemporary context. This isn't just about political representation, though that's crucial. It's about economic power through collective ownership and co-op models, cultural power through controlling our narratives and institutions, and community power through grassroots organizing and mutual aid networks. Also, education and historical literacy is critical. We must understand the successes and the failures of past movements, internalize the lessons, and build upon them, learn from them. This includes a critical examination of internal divisions and a commitment to unity. Not to mention digital organizing and narrative control are essential in the 21st century. Leveraging social media, podcasts, and independent media to shape our own stories, to counter all this misinformation and mobilize for action is absolutely vital. So where's all my Black tech people at? We need our own platforms, so we can't be silenced at will by these soulless billionaires like Zuckerberg or Elon. And finally, a revitalized Black Power movement must prioritize sustainable institution building. This means investing in Black-owned businesses, in our own education system, our own healthcare system, and community development projects that create lasting infrastructure for Black self-sufficiency and empowerment, free, completely free from systemic racism. It's about building a parallel economy and social system that truly serves and protects Black communities everywhere. It's about moving beyond simply reacting to oppression and proactively building the world we all envision. It's about leveraging both political and economic power at the same time and fostering a deep sense of collective responsibility and action. It's about transforming the fear that has historically crippled us into a resolute determination for collective liberation. Now, I'll be the first to admit we need to reteach ourselves the self-determination our ancestors left in our blood. That means taking account of where we are. I will meet you where you are. We will learn and build and grow together. We do have a big rabbit hole of distraction to contend with, however, known as social media. That's right, social media and the mirage of progress. Social media is by far one of the biggest double-edged swords of this era. Social media has given a mic to people, and that's powerful. Movements can now spread through TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Hey, I can even admit it helped me get the BRC off the ground. Through TikTok, I was able to find like-minded Black folks all over the world to start chapters with, ready to do the hard work that's necessary for our liberation. Information flows faster than ever, but so does misinformation. And worse, performative posts. We've replaced organizing in-person meetings with likes and shares. It's not the same. We've replaced community defense with online call-outs and GoFundMes. It's not the same. Everybody want to go viral now, but who's trying to go local? Who's trying to wake up early and help me prepare food for this free lunch program we want to build for the children to fight food insecurity? Or to host free workshops to educate our people on the fullness of our history, or financial literacy, or political or economic education? Who ready to do that? Who wants all the alternative institutions? Who want to help me build all of these institutions we need to escape systemic racist institutions? No. I'm really asking now because now I'm not just trying to make a point. I'm really asking because I do need volunteers for this. But you see my point, right? Who's ready for the real work? That list gets short. Anyway, like I was saying, this constant performative loop is eating our attention, numbing our urgency. It's made us reactive instead of strategic, competitive with each other instead of cooperative. Social media is not the movement. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can build or it can destroy. Here's the question nobody likes to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have we become too selfish for revolution? And the answer, painfully, is, for most of us, yes. But that doesn't have to stay true. So let's not confuse blame with context. This country taught us to be selfish. This white capitalist society taught us that individual wealth is the only path to safety and success. That freedom is for sale. That your success matters more than your community's survival. And the majority of us fell for it. How many of you are out here right now saying, I'm just taking care of me and mine, you know? But no matter how individually successful you are, you can't buy your way out of oppression. Just look at the NFL. The league is full of black millionaires. But do they group up to come back to the neighborhood and rebuild and protect? No. There's no VIP section in liberation. We must unlearn the myth of black exceptionalism, the idea that if one of us makes it, then we all good. Nah, that's not how collective liberation works. That's how you end up with Obama as president, and simultaneously, Trayvon Martin is murdered and his killer walks free. Or you get a Clarence Thomas or a Candace Owens trying to speak for black people. Because you see, if you climb the ladder and pull it up behind you, you're not a success. You're a tool of the system, or in their case, you're a coon in the system, working for the system that is oppressing all black people. But you're never going to convince me that that is success. So the answer is clear to me. We don't need to become what oppresses us. But what we do need to do is build power, ethical, grounded, collective power to shape our future, to love ourselves loud, to organize and resist, to dream beyond survival. Black power isn't just a chant. It's a strategy. It's our right. And it's a promise that we owe to those who came before and to those coming after. If you're black and you're listening to this right now, you are a part of this movement. And you get to decide what kind of ancestor you'll become. Because I know what kind of ancestor I'm going to become. Now, before I go, I want to share a few books with you. If you're interested in learning more about the Black Power ideology. First up, I got Black Power, The Politics of Liberation in America, written in 1967 by Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, and Charles V. Hamilton. This is the definitive manifesto of the Black Power movement, and it introduces the term institutional racism and distinguishes between civil rights and Black power. Next up, I have Revolutionary Suicide, written in 1973 by Huey P. Newton. This is an autobiography and the philosophical reflection from the Black Panther Party's co-founder himself, and it's one of my absolute favorite books. Then we have Assata, an autobiography written in 1987 by Assata Shakur. This is a memoir of the former Black Panther and Black Liberation Army member, a powerful testament to Black resistance and political identity in the face of anti-Blackness. It's an incredible book about an incredible woman. And last but not least, a book that should be required reading at every Black school. Of course, it will certainly be in the school system my organization builds for Black children. But anyway, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. This book takes you on a journey through every decade Malcolm X lived through, what he thought, how he felt, who he loved, and why it all matters. And that, my people, brings us to the end of our first episode of the Black Revolutionary Podcast. We've deciphered what there is to learn from a pivotal moment in our history. We've explored the powerful concept of Black power and considered its relevance for today and the future. Thank you for tuning in, for listening, and for joining me on this journey of reflection and revolution. New episodes will be posted here on YouTube every Wednesday. If you want to help the channel grow, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And you can also listen to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and iHeart. If you're interested in joining the Black Revolutionary Collective, there's a link in the description below to our website. Just click on membership. Also on our website, you can read our 10-point platform. And we also have a Buy Black list. If you're looking for Black-owned businesses, check out our Buy Black list. So I hope to see you next week for our next episode. Until then, as always, I love you, Black man. I love you, Black woman. Knowledge is power. Power to the people.
Come on, give the power to the people. Give the power to the people.